Okay, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Skaggle Bones. I'm going to be your host today, and today we're going to talk about hubs. Okay, especially seal bearing hubs. We might go over some loose ball bearing hubs, but talk about how to replace your bearings. Okay, so like I said, pretty much there's a couple different types of hubs. You have what's called press fit sealed cartridge bearing hubs, and those are seal bearing and they're press fit into the hub itself, and then you have loose ball bearings, in which case with the loose ball bearing one, the cone nut is also the race as well for the bearings. Okay, and then you have an inner race that's part of the axle. Okay, so we're going to take this apart, kind of look at it, give you an idea of what it looks like. So the main thing you're going to need is a set of cone wrenches. As you can see here, I have 15, 13, 13, a couple 13, 15s. Here, 15, 16, 14, 13, and two 18, 17s, okay? Now, the reason I have a double set of these is that, for instance, this is two 17s. That way I can take a 17 on both ends and loosen one side up first. And then I can use this is what we call a axle vise from Park Tool Company, USA. Axle vise, and pretty much what it is a piece of steel here. It's got a softer aluminum metal here that if you clamp on to a threaded portion of an axle, it won't strip. In fact, you can kind of see there where it's actually put some thread markings in there, because this is actually going to be softer, allow you to clamp onto it. Now you can also use plastic as well, the jaws. We have our vise here, and this is just a machinist vise. One reason I got this is it's inexpensive, and instead of having to clamp it onto something, because I don't really have a bench space for it, and kind of just set it wherever on my toolbox or wherever, I don't have to clamp it down. And it's pretty steady because it's kind of a wide base. So get yourself a decent vise. The only problem with these is, just kind of give you a heads up, as you can see here, this isn't going to go all the way down into it. You're going to have a little bit of gap there, but you do have this center portion here. You can kind of, if you wanted to, you can machine this portion out, or kind of maybe machine this out a little bit wider here so this would drop down in there, however you want to do it, or just get a slightly larger vise. It would work as well. But I just kind of put it in there like so, and then clamp it down like that. So, okay, so we got our vise kind of set here. So one of the first things you want to do is you're going to want to take one side, one cone nut off with, and I just use both wrenches to get one of the cone nuts off. Now, by the way, just so you know, I do have these loosened already because I was trying to test this for the video just to see if it would work. So you're going to loosen one side off, and this other side not facing you, coming off there. So you're going to take that cone nut off. Now some wheels will have dual nuts. They'll have a locking nut and a cone nut. These just have two cone nuts. So your cone nut's going to come off. Okay, so you want to put that aside, and then you're not going to be able to spin this side freely off without clamping onto this spindle right here, the center spindle. So that's what this piece is for, the spindle vise. So you're just going to take and put, ultimately here's what you're doing. You're taking, you have two holes on there. You have a small one, and then you got a medium one. And for this one, you choose the large one. You're going to take that and put the spindle vise over it like so, like a sandwich. And then kind of put it down inside the vise like this. You kind of hold this on there, and then you're just going to kind of clamp down on it. And don't worry, get it good and tight. If you don't get it good and tight, you can actually do more damage to the spindle, because the spindle will spin freely inside the vise. So you don't want that to happen. So get it nice and tight so it won't spin inside there. Then you take your 17 millimeter again, whatever size cone that you need, and then you just kind of spin that off. Now, what I do is I grease the axles or the spindle and the cone nut. That way, the next time that I go to take these off, they're not hard to get off. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is you can go to your toolbox, grab yourself a pick, next thing you have in here is you have a couple of little dust covers. You can pop those out. That's what they look like. They're a little piece of aluminum in there with some coating, plastic coating over top of them. So you can take those out. Let's see here. Looking for a cloth. Okay. And you can spin it around like so if you want to. Kind of put it in there. And then you can go to the other side. Do the same thing. Just, you don't want to go prying on these super heavy because you want to keep these. So don't pry on it too much. If you just lightly pry on it, it should pop out. Okay. So now we got those out. Now you can see the bearings. So that's the sealed bearing inside of there. And then what you can do now to punch these out, you're going to take your rubber mallet, which we have here. Always use a rubber mallet. And then I'm going to just hold my hand on the one side. And we're just going to tap on it, okay? And it doesn't matter which way you go, you can tap either way. And then you got it out. And as you can see here, we'll look at the axle here. As you can see here, here's the axle. This is the bearing, actually sits up against this plate here. The axle goes inside there, so now you have the bearing. The bearing will come off like so. And then you can take your cloth. Get ourselves a cloth here. I just get a cloth that already had the grease on it. And I'm going to set the bearing down. And I'm going to set the axle down, okay? And the thing is, if you notice right here on this part of the axle, you don't want to pinch onto the section before, or on the spindle, before the threads with the axle vise. You actually want to clamp onto the whole thing. You'll actually get better grip. You won't damage the threads. If you think for some reason you've burred the threads up a little bit, what you can do is get yourself, if you have if you have a tap and die set, okay, like we have here. Pull out your tap and die set. You can find out which die would go to it. Not quite sure. Pretty fine thread. No, that's not the right one. No, that's not the right one either. But you can come over, hit your tap and die set, and you could retouch up those threads, okay? And you got to make sure you have a metric tap and die set. I have one that's both. So that's what you would have to do if the threads kind of got messed up at all. So I don't recommend necessarily going out and buying a tap and die set just for these fixies. These aren't that expensive, so you can just kind of replace them as needed if this is damaged. Okay, so now the next thing you got is we got that spindle right here. I'll put that on our cloth. The next thing you have to do is get the other bearing out, okay? So you can see from the inside here, this is the spot where the bearing sits, is along in here. Next thing you got to do is we got to tap out that bearing. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to grab a punch set. Now you don't have to use a set. You can just find out whatever punch punch that will work best for you. Okay, and this is a pretty big punch, and I could use it to tap out right against the metal piece. Ultimately, what you're going to do is when you go through the center, obviously it just drops through the center like so. So now I could actually use this little edge here to tap it out if I wanted to, or you tap it out from the other end, or you can actually hit up against the inner race. So outer race, inner race. When you tap it out, you want to hit it against the inner race there so you don't completely ding it up. And that's how you're going to do that, okay? So let's go over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this over like so. And as you can see here, it's all the way through. Like this. And I just tap it a couple times, give it a couple soft taps, and the bearing comes out. Okay. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that I had done previously is I already greased the bearing a little bit, and I put it along the outer race so that when the bearing was popped out, we wouldn't damage the bearing, okay, just in case I had to repack bearings. Okay, so for the most part, these bearings shouldn't ever need to be repacked. They're pretty good, but if you ever need to, you can take them out that way and then repack the bearings, okay? So now the bearings are out. What I'm going to do at this point in time, I'm not going to take these apart and repack them, but I am going to show you how to press them in, back in. So what typically I do is I get my grease gun like so, and I try to use a marine grease or something equivalent to it. And I take my grease and I put my grease back on to the bearings like so. Okay. Now the interesting thing is you have to have the spindle in the center of the hub in order for these to go in. Okay, so now that I got the one side of the spindle on, I'm going to take and I'm going to push this into the hub like so. And kind of push it in like this. I'm going to hold that bearing in place like this. Okay. And then at this point you can use the axle vise again and kind of just take it like so. And obviously try not to drop everything. Okay, so I'm just going to set it in here. I'm not cranking down on it too hard because I don't want to. I'm not tightening anything up at this point in time. Let me get my punch here real quick. Okay, so punch down there. Okay, so at this point in time, now we got to work on the top bearing. Okay, so now I got this bearing here, and once again I'm going to take my grease gun. But preferably I would have a little different workspace here, like so. Once again, we want to take the black part, and it's going to go on the inside, like so. So I'm going to want to grease that up first. Give Give this a generous coating of grease. And the reason I'm putting a lot of grease on this is to prevent from any water or anything from getting in here. Okay. Some people think that's excessive. Most locations in the world I wouldn't worry about it, but I am in a very humid climate. You know, like 90% of the humidity all the year round. So I'm going to kind of set it there like so. Okay. I'm going to wipe my hands off. Now I suggest if you have, you know, nitro gloves, use nitro gloves, whatever rubber gloves you can use. That'll prevent from a lot of the stuff. Now, here's something that I'm going to do, and here's a little trick that I've kind of perfected. Instead of getting a vise, you can use your quick release skewer here, or, and I prefer to use my, instead of using my original one, okay, for this, I got this metal one. So I buy a set of metal ones that are forward and aft specific, and then I have these two washers that are like that fit on there, and I use those to press in. By the way, you want to take the springs off when you do this, and then I use that to actually press in the reason I use specific ones is because if you don't, the problem is you're going to not be able to clamp down far enough, okay? So you're going to have too much of a, so you can see you have too much of a gap here. So not enough to press down on this, okay? So what you can do is if you really have to, you can compensate with some washers or something like that, some nuts, or something like that. And to give you an example, one thing you can do is you can take your headset press or your bottom bracket bearing press, this is why I have two of them. So I take the washers, the small washers first, and I put those one on that end, like so. And I take that washer and I put that there. And I take this, like so, and I kind of put it like that. And that gives me a big gap on it, okay? Then at this point in time, I'm going to release my skewer. Okay, and then I'm going to drop this down in like so. Okay, and then once again, I'm going to do like this. I'm going to take this guy here, and you're going to make a mess. It's just the way it's going to be. You don't have a whole lot of choice. And then you still don't have enough room, take a nut or so. Take a nut and drop that on there like that. And take your washer. Just anything to gap this. Okay? Then you hold on to the quick release on one side while you tighten up on the other side, just like so. And what this does is allows for even pressure on both sides of the bearing, like so. And it's not a perfect bearing press, okay? You could use a mallet, but mallets, when you hit a mallet, you're going to hit it very unevenly, almost all the time. Okay, so you take this like so, and then I grab and hold this tension here while I spin the quick release part, and just very slowly push it in like this. And one side will probably go in before the other. And I just keep going, I just keep cranking down. Now you can actually make one and get real thick washers and get specific nuts for just for one of these quick release skewers. I actually have one I built, and I'll show you that in another video of how to build one. And then you do that, just like that. Loosen this up, and then you're going to inspect the bearing. Okay, so as you can see, the bearing's now flush. The problem is the bearing isn't all the way in, so I'm going to kind of take, let's see here, I want to find the right size. What's going to work the best? It's going to be the nut. So this nut is actually going to push, it's just enough to fit, to hit the outer race, and then it's going to push down into place. Then we're going to do the other side. So right now I'm doing one side at a time. Normally I do both sides at the same time. I have two nuts. I only got the one right now. Screw that on there just like so. Now there are better ways to make bearing presses. You can make a more official bearing press than this. Okay. So don't think that you can't. And then as you see, it's actually pressing in because you actually have a gap in there. You got to press it past and get to where there's a little indentation in there where you put the seal on. Okay, so now that's in all the way. Okay. And this is why I have, you want to get ones that are specific for front and rear axles. That way you can have two different presses as well. Okay, so as you can see there, you have that side done. And of course you got all that grease on there as well, so it's nice and lubed. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. So once again, just kind of put that there, put that there. Put this on it, like so. Go through, like that. Take your nut first. So you put that there. Yeah, like so. And this is, like I said, this is really why you want front and rear specific, because this is for the rear, and it's a lot longer because it's got to accommodate the cassette in the back. So it still works. It's just, now I could use the front skewer and do the same thing. I could use my original skewer. It's just the fact that I don't want to get my original skewer all greasy. This is just a secondary leftover skewer. Adjust the nut on that side like so. And then once again, just press it down in there. Make sure it's tight. crank on it decently, and then you can release it, okay? And you can just unscrew that. Okay, now we can pull these off, take a quick release skewer and put it off to the side. Okay, and as you can see, both bearings are pressed inside. At this point, we can kind of take one side and we can take our we're going to take our cap, push the cap back in. We can start the cone nut. You don't need to get it super tight at this point in time. Like I said, these are pre-centered, so you don't have to worry about if you got it centered or not. Just kind of get it on there a little bit. Come on the other side, you're just going to kind of set it there. You're not really. And then the nice thing is with cone wrenches, you can take both cone wrenches at this point in time and tighten these up. Okay. Let's take each 17. Second here, let me adjust myself. Take like so. And like so. And you're going to tighten it up. And just snug it just a little bit. And then you want to spin this. Make sure you don't have any, you don't want this to spin super fast because you just packed it with a lot of grease. Okay, but you want it to spin freely. You don't want it to be all super sluggish. And then you want to take your cloth and you want to get the grease off of the wheel, or the hub I should say. Inspect it for any issues, any damage, anything like that. Okay, make sure you don't have any gaps here between the cone nut and the hub itself. Get it all wiped off. And then you're pretty much ready to go. So we're now going to take our quick release skewer, like so. Big thing is, hold on one second, I want to make sure the thread's going the same way. So yeah, so I want my quick release skewer to go in like so. Small part of the the spring to be in towards the spindle. And that's pretty much it what we got for today, folks. So once again, take that, put it on our bike. Let's see here. And you got a completed set of front hubs finished. And the rear hubs are going to be pretty much the same. You might just have slightly different cone wrenches that are needed for that. Just fine. There you go. So, the wheel is spinning fine. It's spinning super freely. It works really good. And that's pretty much all you have to do for press fit front hub bearings, or rear hub bearings for that matter. That's it for me, folks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it went to about 30 minutes, but it's about what it takes, especially if you've never done this before. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button below. That'll take you to our YouTube channel where you can see more videos like this. And like always, keep riding.